Aloha guys, hope everyone's doing well. I'm outside, kind of a crappy rainy day. I didn't feel really motivated all day, but I wanted to actually record a little video for you and just give you an update on what I felt so far regarding the Mavic Air 2 with the new smart controller compatibility, and also my input on these two controllers and what I think the pros and cons are to each. So first off, I had the Mavic Air 2, and of course I've been flying with this for roughly the last 5 months, even though DJI said that the compatibility firmware update would probably be 2 weeks, which obviously wasn't the case. And then once the firmware update finally came, as we all know, or probably most of you know, it was a real pain in the ass. So to update the firmware on this controller pretty much sucked. I mean, it took me 3 hours plus. I went to my friend's because my computer was actually in for repair, so I had to go and use his MacBook Pro, and I thought it was going to be pretty routine. I brought everything over to his house, downloaded the DJI Assistant, for Mavic, and did what I was supposed to do. But I didn't know that you were supposed to put this thing to not actually sleep. So it was essentially the big issue. If this controller went to sleep, then the actual firmware update would error out. And there were a few other things, but we're not going to really go into it. Thankfully, apparently there was a server issue too on DJI's end, and that was a big culprit to why people were having issues actually getting through even the downloading portion of it. But after the second day, finally got this thing successfully updated. And what I did was I bought the smart controller with the Mavic 2 Pro like a couple weeks ago, just because I wanted the new smart controller with this guy. I've been waiting for so long. I had one with my Mavic 2 Zoom, but I ended up returning it and buying this when it came out. And I really fell in love with the smart controller, and I thought I was gonna really love flying the smart controller with this drone, and honestly, I don't. So, I don't know. I mean, I don't wanna kind of jump into the whole conclusion yet, but to me, this controller, now obviously I flew it for about 5 months or whatever it was, since May, and I kind of fell in love with it, and it really does to me have the perfect balance to this drone. So these two things just feel, even the weight ratio feels more complementary. This thing feels better with the Mavic 2 Pro and Zoom. It just feels that much heavier, and it has that balance to that drone. But I don't know. I mean, if I was contemplating buying a smart controller for this drone, I would hold off. Personally, if it was me, I would buy another Mavic Air 2, just buy the one for $800 without the Fly More combo, and you have a B drone. That's, to me, a much more professional, smart move. That way you have a backup drone always. You're never out without a drone. If something happens and you crash, you have a brand new one while the other one's getting repaired. So basically, that's my suggestion on what you guys should do if you have $800 burning a hole in your pocket and you just need to spend it. Otherwise, wait, because I'm sure Black Friday they're going to have a special and they're going to have killer prices on everything. So that would be my other suggestion. But, this thing is a whole complex piece of hardware that now you got to figure out. So if you're really familiar and used to flying with this, now you have this thing, which is going to be that much more different. So you have no connectivity, meaning you can't basically hook up like you can with a smartphone attached to your other controller. So now you have no connectivity. You either have to use your iPhone or whatever, your mobile phone with a personal hotspot, or you need to be connected to Wi-Fi, which how often are you flying where you have a Wi-Fi reception? So there's that big part of it, the no connectivity. That to me is a huge thing. But again, this thing will behave in a lot of different ways than this, even transferring files. Say you have a file and you want to go and upload it to social media. Now with this, you got to go into the actual controller, go to, GoShare or whatever it is. You got to go to the DJI 4 app. You got to scan the little QR code. It's just a whole other set of steps that now I don't really want to have to deal with. And honestly, I just enjoy using this more than this for basic flying. If you do have a job and you really want to have another option, and this is in your tool bag, why not? But to spend $800 or $750, I should say, right now, I wouldn't do it. This thing is going to be a lot quicker to just press a button and start up and start your drone and take off. But say it takes you an extra 30 seconds to go ahead and get this into here and do this whole little routine, which is not that big of a deal. My hands are cold, I'm not used to this. But if you just go ahead and pull this up, go here and get this thing in, I mean, it's pretty quick to do, boom, and you're ready to go. So what did that take me? 5 seconds? The amount of time that it saves you flying with this thing, it takes that much more time farting around, transferring files and figuring out different menus and why it's not doing this and why it's doing something differently than you're used to with this controller. So that's something to take into consideration. You know, you're not really saving that much time. If anything, you're going to take way more energy figuring out this whole new complex controller, which there is. It's Android based, which isn't a horrible thing, but at the same time, for me as an iPhone user, it's just more to figure out. Even the file management system, when I put a micro SD card in there, everything just behaves that much more differently. And I just find myself now having to figure and learn a whole new thing out, and it's taking away from me flying, honestly. So that's my take on it. One of the other things I talked to DJI about when I was flying the other day, I had the manned aircraft warning on my smart controller, and even though my language is set to English, the actual voice coming out was Chinese, so it was like Mandarin or something. And I talked to DJI, and apparently they said they missed that part in the update. So that's what they told me. When I talked to them specifically, I have it written down. Here, wait. They said the smart controller is set to the default language, which is Chinese. They missed changing the language in the firmware update. So expect that to be changed probably in the future update of the smart controller. But just know that there's things like that now that you're going to have to kind of contend with. You're going to have little things that maybe they missed because it's a brand new firmware update for the smart controller with the Mavic Air 2. So do you really want to have to mess around with stuff that isn't really established, or would we rather just fly with something like this that's meant for it and you know works? And actually now with, I believe, the new update, you can, I don't know if it's with this one or the other one, that you can control the zoom. So again, there's that. One of the other things that I was noticing with this, when I was flying and getting my low battery warning, it was only vibrating. So to me that was almost a little disconcerting because I'm so used to hearing the beeping and the critical low battery warning, and just a little vibration wasn't really jarring me to get back home. And I couldn't really figure out where. I found a little area, if you go to sound, and I think it's other sounds, you can scroll all the way down to the bottom and there's something that says like vibration something, and you can toggle that on and off. I'll show you in the screen recording how to get there. Essentially go to settings, go to sound, and then you go to other sounds, I believe, and then if you, here, let me turn it on. So essentially what you do, I'm going to turn on the controller right now, you scroll down, you hit the gear on the top, that will take you into settings, and then you scroll down a little bit more under device, you go to sound, and then you go to other sounds, and then if you scroll all the way down, you'll see something that says vibrate on tap. That was the only option I could see in the entire menu system on anything that controls vibration. So that was the only thing I was able to find in the menu system that was something about vibration and controlling the vibration on the smart controller. So play around with that and let me know if you find out something more. One more thing to kind of mess around with, but where I was going with that is the low battery warning you can't really control either. So with the Mavic Air 2, apparently what they came out with is something called running calculation. Running calculation calculates essentially how many minutes it's going to take for your aircraft, aka drone, to return back home safely. So say in the DJI 4 app with the other drones, you can set it to 20%, 10% to get back home, or your 6% for critical low battery warning. You can't do that anymore. So what it does apparently is it calculates how far you are to safely get back to your return home point, and it will calculate the time and give you the warnings based on those calculations. So again, that's the running calculation thing. DJI basically said too that it's an upgrade from their low battery warning system. So that was what they told me. So again, if the drone's 50 feet away from me and I could see it and it's right, you know, not far away, like yesterday it gave me a low battery warning at around 4 minutes, and it gave me like a minute and a half for forced landing. So obviously 4 minutes is not that much time, but it would have been a way different low battery warning if I was 1,000 feet up in altitude and 2,000 feet away. So just be aware of that. It's going to always be different with your low battery warning based on where the drone's at. So again, pay attention to that and let me know what you guys think about that and see what you're experiencing. So the point of this whole video is this thing worth $750 essentially to fly with the Mavic Air 2? My answer would be no. I wouldn't think it's worth it. I think this is a better controller for the Mavic Air 2. This isn't necessarily a super pro drone, although it's a very capable drone and a lot of people are making money with it. I do a lot of jobs with this drone and it does great, and I sell a lot of fine art prints with this drone. So to me, this is a great photography drone. Shooting in the 48 megapixel RAW, you can see a lot of the images are really, really nice. I'll show you some images now, but they look great. And you got 48 megapixel, it got a big enough file size to basically print anything with. I could print 30 by 40 inch prints all day long, 40 inch by 60 inch with this drone. So it's super capable. But again, the smart controller, to me, it's great. It's an amazing controller. It has 1000 nit for the display, so it's great in bright sun, but it's a whole complex piece of hardware that now you got to figure out and kind of learn and see what the quirks are and get used to a whole new thing. So I don't know, to me that detracts from the actual flying experience because I'm having to figure this thing out. If you have $800 to burn and you just want to buy a smart controller just to have the latest and greatest and see for yourself, so be it. It's not a bad controller, but I would buy another drone like this and have a backup drone. That would be my call. But let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. Let me know if you think the smart controller is amazing with the Mavic Air 2. Let me know if you had issues with the firmware update. Let me know if you have any kind of feedback that you think I'm missing out on, if you think I'm an idiot for thinking this thing isn't really amazing. But again, I just find it being more complex to actually fly with because of the connectivity. Like for me, again, just being able to transfer files back and forth easily, do firmware updates with no problem, not having to set up a personal hotspot and then connect to this thing, and it's more of a hassle. So again, hope this helps, guys. Peace, aloha, bye.